Matthew Lloyd says, is the Oregon standoff an indication or precursor that we're very close to needing an American Revolution 2.0? If the election doesn't go our way, does that effectively mean we're past the point of return and it's time to suit up? None of us want that, and it seems like we keep moving the line in the sand or don't have a clear idea of where that line is to begin with. Are frogs being slow-boiled, uncomfortable, but not too uncomfortable to join out? Well, yes, certainly frogs are being slow-boiled. There's no question about that. It's a great question, Matthew. I think the Oregon standoff is just another indication. It's one of many weather reports that are coming in from weather stations all around the world that things are changing and that the temperature is getting a little bit out of control, if you'll pardon the expression. It is an indication that people are, the huge numbers of people, the enormous majority of people have lost faith in the government. And so the outliers, the people on one end of the bell curve and people on the other end of the bell curve, everybody's moving in the same direction, even though there's an enormously wide disparity. I think on the Stefan show, the last one I did that I haven't posted yet, I talk a bit like, somebody said I sound like Mike Rowe. I'm proud to know Mike Rowe. I was in a room with Mike Rowe, and Mike Rowe said, did anybody see that video that guy did about, I forget what it was. Maybe it was the atom bombs or something. And everybody looked at him and he said, what? And he said, that guy right there. And he looked at me and said, oh my God, he's a terrific guy. Mike Rowe is everything you think Mike Rowe really is, he really is. And yes, Mike Rowe deserves a medal for dirty jobs and dangerous catch and stuff. But I digress. I just wanted to show off. So yes, when you get something like the Oregon standoff on one end of the bell curve, which is the extreme anti-government end of the bell curve, what does the other end of the bell curve look like? Well, I asked that question on Stefan's show, and I think I said, look, is there anybody out there right now, who can honestly say at night, I know a lot of people say it in public, is there anybody at night in the darkness of their room before they go to sleep who can say, boy, this Barack Obama exceeded my wildest dreams when he first came on the scene in 2008. Is there a living single person who can say that? In other words, if his greatest supporters, the disappointment you hear from his greatest supporters is everywhere, and that's just the spoken disappointment. Is there one person who said, oh, he was much better than I thought he would have been back when he first got elected and he was going to be the light worker and stop the rise of oceans and, Peace Prize? I don't think there's one person. So on the far left pro-Obama, pro-government side of the thing, everybody's moving away from this state position, big state position. And on the other end, you've got guys now who are feeling that it's time to party down. It's time to throw down. I don't agree with them. Not yet. Let me just talk about this Oregon thing for a second, because I need to be clear about this. And I wrote the name down and I've forgotten it. I mentioned it on, where did I mention it? Did I mention it last week? Did I talk about Oregon last week? I don't think I did. No, I think I did it prior to the, because I thought we were going to talk about Oregon with Stefan, and I wrote the name down. I don't have the name. Somebody gave me the name. You know what? Here it is, I think. Hang on a sec. I want to get this right. She certainly deserves that I get it right. There it is. So I had an opinion about the Oregon thing, and my opinion was, look, the provocation is great. The federal government, I think, is completely out of control. I think the prosecution of these guys and sending them back to jail and all that other stuff, I think it's all terrific, and worthy of protest and rebellion. And even though some people are saying these aren't the greatest guys in the world, some of these Oregon guys, my feeling was, hey, a protest is a protest, and a protest is certainly called for, but at the same time, I kind of said, it's against the law. And I'm still a law and order guy, and my position was, we obey the law until there is no law, and then it's time to overthrow the government and get new laws. But this is not at that point yet. It's getting closer, but it's not at that point yet. I want to be about as clear about that as I possibly can be. We're not at that point yet. And so I think this takeover is illegal, and therefore I'm against it. And then I saw a video on this. It had about 150,000 views at the time. I suspect it's well above 200,000 now. And I had to write the name down because I've never heard of her before. But she's a constitutional attorney who went to the University of Florida, so her intellect and her credentials are unimpeachable. I guess I did mention it. I'm going to bring it up again. Her name is Chris Ann Hall. And just to answer your question, Matt, Chris Ann Hall read the Constitution, and she talked about Article 1, Section 8, Clause 13, where basically it says that the federal government shall be entitled to 10 square miles of territory for D.C., assuming that that they can cede the land from the states, and they also have enough. They have a right to get forts and ports, forts, armories, and port facilities. So I did talk about it last week, so I'm not going to go into detail now. But basically, the entire argument is the Bureau of Land Management is not only illegal, is not only uncalled for in the way that the EPA and Department of Transportation are uncalled for by the Constitution. The Bureau of Land Management is actually illegal because the Constitution specifically says that the federal government can't own more land than the 10 square miles of D.C. and enough land for forts and ports. It's not a third of the country. So by that standard, these ranchers are arguing with an illegal entity, and they're 100% correct. It's an illegal entity, the Bureau of Land Management. The fact that that's federal land is not only not provided for in the Constitution, it's against the Constitution. And once I got to that point, I realized, yeah, they're right. They're right. And if there's one thing out there that terrifies the progressive left, it's citizens with rifles talking about freedom. That's why they want gun control. They talk about it for the mass murders. They don't worry about that. They want the idea that somebody could supplant the state is terrifying to progressives. It's their primal fear, as I said before. That's the fear that the slave owners have, is that there's going to be a slave uprising at nighttime. So there you go. So